perfect for you. Ah, she's like singing out of my soul. Sometimes we get lost in our own little world, but it's all so much bigger than we realize. Hey everyone, my name is Rosalie Elliott. Welcome to the Ultimate YouTube channel all around the world to explore music, psychology, and so much more. Shout out today goes to David for making a Rush suggestion. I've been on this Rush journey and it has been epic, and it's time for me to dive into some more. I want to check out Natural Science with you. Just love that album cover. The weatherman being blown away by a hurricane and flood. Permanent waves.
Microcosmic planet, a complete society. A simple kind of mirror to reflect upon our own, all the busy little creatures chasing out their destinies, living in the pools they soon forget about the sea. Within wheels in a spiral array, a pattern so grand and complex. Time after time we lose sight of the way our causes can't see their effects.
You guys, I feel like whatever I say is not going to do justice to what this band does and who they are. I went from not knowing what Rush is to becoming a fan. I got myself a t-shirt. I can't wait to show you. Yes, I got the t-shirt. You tell me how often you find me getting the t-shirt for a band that I discover through this channel and through you. I got the t-shirt. I am so humbled, continuously humbled at Rush's work. It always feels like some type of masterpiece, some type of meal, a gourmet dish of intricate flavors and a beautiful presentation and textures. It's this whole experience that I feel, if I just were to talk a little bit about how it makes me feel, it doesn't do justice. It is art on another level. And I'm not saying that to flatter Rush or you guys who are fans. I'm saying that because I genuinely feel this way. Of course, they fall in a certain type of genre, subgenre, if you will. There are definitely threads throughout their music that make Rush Rush. You hear some of their musical compositions, and as I've been diving into this world, I go, okay, that's Rush, right? Obviously, it's not hip hop. Obviously, they are not mastering any at all possible genre in the world. They have their style, their genre. And to me, that's the beautiful thing about science, about this world, is that there's so many subcategories, so many different things that are beautiful, though different. And Rush brings such a unique, amazing display of art to us through their music that it just falls in a whole category of its own. And it's this whole separate experience, and it's amazing. I absolutely am blown away by this. I know last time when I was reviewing the album, one of their albums, and I listened to Vital Signs, I said that might be my favorite. I am now questioning my choice. Not that I have to pick, I know, but now I'm questioning if maybe it's Natural Science. And I don't feel that way about all their tracks. I'm mind blown by all of them. I'm amazed. But something like YYZ, for example, was not a song that I would call my favorite, though it was some of the most complex musical arrangements that I had ever heard. But it wasn't one of those songs that I would want to listen to again and again. And, it's more of a piece of art that you experience and then you listen to other things. Natural Sciences is not like that. Natural Sciences is mind-blowing. But somehow it's the type of song I would like to keep listening to. It was an entire experience. At one point, I almost found myself wanting to get emotional because the performance, not even a performance, that word doesn't do justice. The art here was so intricate, but it was so fitting to what's being talked about. And we'll talk about the lyrics in just a second, so don't go anywhere. What Alex Lifeson was doing with the guitar, the way he would modulate, the way that he would run up and down that guitar, it was, the guitar itself was painting a picture, was bringing us a whole spiel all on its own, just taking us through this journey, literally as if riding waves. And I found it so neat that the song began with waves that sounded more calm, almost soothing. And in the end, while still soothing, they sounded a little more vibrant and intense, a little more rushing, if you will. But it was still a full circle moment for me. And what Alex Lifeson did on the guitar here was, the way he played it was to me as if riding through the waves. And yes, part of that perception may be influenced by the album cover and seeing the picture and the weatherman nearly being blown away by this hurricane and flood, the newspaper flying, the trees bending in the wind. Beautiful piece of art, even that picture alone. But the way that the notes were being played, the chord progression, the modulation, the intensity, the music is so powerful to me because it is so multi-layered. You can play an instrument and completely change the notes, and it changes the feeling and the way it impacts you. You could change the intensity of how you pick a string, or if you strum it versus picking it, or if you are playing higher versus lower notes. Even if just one instrument alone, it will have an impact to how the story is told. That goes for any form of art. I could read you a story, and the way that I use my voice, the way that I emphasize certain words, or the way that I place punctuation can completely change the entire meaning of a sentence. The way that I emphasize certain words can change the intensity and the drama and the emotion that it evokes in you. This goes for art and the type of colors and paintbrushes and media that is used in art. Are we using blocks and actual tangibles? Are we using paint? Are we using pastels over acrylic paint? Is this watercolor? All those things impact what the picture does for us in the end result. And the same thing goes with music. The way you play that guitar, the notes you play, if you're at times screaming versus if you're creating more dull sounds, if you're creating rapid crescendo over the more soothing, melodic, all of this tells a story and impacts us emotionally and the way we're hearing things. And of course, some of it is subjective due to our own personal beliefs, upbringing, taste, etc. That alone was a masterpiece. Then you add Neil Peart's ability from the way that the time signatures were switching, the various meters within this song. And I was trying to keep track because I'm no drummer, but I was trying to keep track of was the common time persistent? Was this a regular time, or was this a mixed meter? And I felt like it was just so vibrant. It was hard to keep track. It was powerful. It was absolutely incredible. Also, again, almost wave and storm-like sounding, so fitting to the science that was being spoken about. Again, we'll talk about the lyrics in a second. Then you have Geddy Lee's voice. He too, with what he does, we need to remember we can sing something and not only add melodic fluctuation to create some type of interesting sound, right? La 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 la, right? We can use different notes, and now we bring in harmonies, and it adds emphasis and it creates vibrancy. It's also how we use our voice, right? There's many vocal coaches out there who are great at demonstrating what this sounds like when we use grit versus when we bring in breathiness versus when we use our vocal box in a certain way. It changes the story, if you will. It changes the painting. Just to pull parallels there to other forms of art. And Geddy Lee does that so beautifully with his unique voice. This whole composition was an absolute ride of emotions. Absolutely powerful. Mind-bending. And then the lyrics. Guys, the poetry in these lyrics. Rush amazes me by the fact that not only are they creating music that is one of a kind, in my opinion, this may be being one of their best works, but also by the fact that they bring substance. And I love that. You guys know we're all about this on that channel. But just in general, in life, I personally, many of you, crave for substance. Give me something meaningful. No, that does not mean we have to psychoanalyze every single thing. Some things are just for entertainment. Sometimes it's nice to turn off our brains and just be, and that's part of life as well. But then there's also something so beautiful about diving deeper, telling stories, finding poetry, finding beautiful in the mundane. And with Rush, I just so appreciate that they give us so much freaking substance. It's beautiful. When the ebbing tide retreats along the rocky shoreline, okay, the storytelling here is just on another level. It paints a picture from the start. It leaves a trail of tide pools in a short-lived galaxy, okay? And I'm picturing here the ocean and the shoreline. I'm picturing the contrast between sand and rocks and the flood and the tide and the way that it flows and the trail of pool tides that it leaves behind. If you've ever been to the ocean, you know what that looks like, right? These pools, these little holes filled with water after the water has receded along the shoreline. But here it paints a picture now that is much bigger than even the ocean itself being so vast we can't comprehend it. Now contrasting it to the short-lived galaxy, okay? Painting this picture of something eternal, but yet calling a galaxy short-lived because of stars that are dying, because our understanding through science being that things are dying, things are fading, constantly changing. Each microcosmic planet, a complete society. Okay, for one, we have a duality here between something that is microcosmic and tiny, in contrast to the great vast universe, but also saying it's complete in and of its own. It's its own society. Planet Earth, this tiny planet, is its own society. And maybe there are other planets like it. We don't know. All the busy little creatures chasing out their destinies, living in their pools, they soon forget about the sea. Okay, this beautiful tying in back to those water pools that the tide left behind. We living in our pools, in our little world. So fitting to the whole album, right? Speaking of the waves. They soon forget about the sea. Okay, these little pools forget about the sea. They forget where they came from to begin with. That too is so fitting to us. We are so small on this planet Earth, and yet a lot of times we either think the world revolves around us, or we feel incredibly alone on this planet, or we are so consumed with ourselves. I just posted a story about the other day where I was just intrigued, yet once again, at the fact that we are just side characters and extras in everybody else's story. I am a side character in yours. You are the main character in your own story. But we forget that sometimes. We go about our day thinking people think like us and feel like us. And in theory, we know they don't, but we still perceive the world through our lens. And we forget that I'm a nobody to most people. I live my life and I'm focused on everything through my lens. Most people will pass by not even know who I am. And if they do, they still have to live their own lives. And this goes both ways. We forget the see, we forget the bigger picture. And this can be applicable in many ways. With the examples I just gave, this can be applicable in the sense of our views on politics, religion, philosophy, psychology, right? We have our little pool. We're so consumed by our little tribe. We're so fixated on what we think we know. And we forget the big picture. We forget where we came from. We forget that we're bigger, much part of something much bigger. That's how I interpret that. Wheel within wheels in a spiral array. Now, wheel within wheels also makes me think of the show, The Wheel of Time. But it makes me think also of the concept of time. And I'm getting philosophical, bear with me. This idea that it's ultimately an illusion. We created time. And what I mean by that is we created this idea of 24 hours, 7 days in a week. Of course, there's the sun and the moon, and there are seasons in this world that were not made by us. Of course, there's rhythms and routines that imply time. Even back in the day, the way they measured time through the sundials and such. But when I say we created time, what I'm referring to is this idea of, 1 minute means 60 seconds, okay? We created calendars. We have our various calendars, the Gregorian calendar, the Mayan calendar. There are many cultures and tribes that don't go by our timeline at all. We have time changes, the summer and winter time, and now I say it's 8 p.m., and a person on the other side of the planet will not grasp that and will say, no, it's actually noon, right? So there's the time, the idea of time, and the way we interpret what it means, the value we give it, how much of it we have is man-made, if you will, or man-influenced. And so when I think of wheel within wheels in a spiral array, I'm thinking of these philosophical concepts that are so mind-boggling to me. When we look at time and when we look at the way things are spinning and operating, it makes me think of clocks, the way the wheels intertwine in a clock. It makes me think of quantum physics and of sciences where we see various spiral-like, wheel-like grams. It makes me think of the Enneagram and different wisdom tools where things are demonstrated through circular, cyclical drawings and grams, diagrams. A pattern so grand and complex, time after time we lose sight of the way. Our causes can't see their effects. And this chorus repeats throughout the song. And this line, our causes can't see their effects, is powerful to me because both in the English literary art, we discover, even growing up in school, we learn about the idea of cause and effect, right? In school, when we read texts and various types of literature, we're told to pay attention to cause and effect, in addition to many other things, of course. And we learn about how something we do has consequences. That's something we teach children from early on. But somehow here in the song, they're saying our causes can't see their effects. The things we're doing, the cause, or whatever the reason of why we do what we do, doesn't see the effect. We don't see the big picture. We're going through the motion. And that on a simple level makes sense, right? A lot of times we do things and we don't see the big picture. We forget the big sea, the big water that the little pool is from. But on a more profound level, and even on a psychological level, I find this very powerful because it makes me think, yes, there are many times where the cause does not see the effect. I do something and I don't know the ripple effect it will have. I may say something that impacts you, and maybe you operate reacting to whatever I said, consciously or subconsciously. You may go about your day now thinking of something, viewing the world, choosing a song, saying something to your family member or friend because of something I said, maybe intentionally, maybe subconsciously. These things happen. I mean, I've experienced this many times in my life. I don't know about you. Recently, I listened to a song. I saw something online, and my husband comes home and he starts humming that exact same song. I was startled and I asked him, I said, did you see that same reel? Did you see that same video? I just saw that. And he said, no, I did not. For some reason, he was singing the exact song that I had just listened to a snippet of. And it was very particular. It was not a song that, is playing on the radio all the time. And we had just watched a movie that had this song in it. It was very random. It almost felt like on an energy level, there was some type of connection. Maybe the reel did come across his feed and he forgot about it. Maybe I hummed it subconsciously and he heard me sing it and I didn't remember. Obviously, I'm not going to over spiritualize or be superstitious about things that may have a logical explanation. But there are things in this world that are hard to just simply explain away with tangible things. There are things we cannot see. And quantum physics is one of those things. There are many things we're learning as science keeps developing about quantum physics. And I feel like the song is just the ultimate song that beautifully talks about that. It continues and it says, a quantum leap forward in time and space. And now again, the musical composition so fitting to the lyrics. We're talking about quantum here, and the way that the time signatures and the chord progression and the melody switches constantly, just keeping us on our toes. A quantum leap forward in time and space. The music so fitting to what is being talked about here. We're talking of time and space throughout this. It's getting so philosophical, so scientific. The universe learned to expand. Mess and magic. Oh, that alliteration. Triumphant and tragic. Another beautiful alliteration. And contrast, though. Mess and magic, triumph and tragedy, a mechanized world out of hand. Oh, and that fits in beautifully with the wheel within wheel, that spiral away that they were speaking of earlier. Again, makes me think of a clock and the way the wheels work together. Speaking of this mechanized world out of hand. Oh my gosh. And that too is so powerful, because on one hand, it makes me think of the song, God's got the whole world in his hand, right? And a lot of times people would contrast faith and religion and the idea of God holding a world in his hand. They would contrast to science. And to me, I don't think it doesn't necessarily have to be an either or, right? There's such beauty in things that we can explain or can't explain, and things we can measure and can't. And so here to say it's out of hand, but to speak of a mechanized world and painting this mechanical, logical, scientific angle, but yet doing it with so much beauty that it almost goes beyond something simple and tangible. Science, like nature, must also be tamed with a view towards its preservation. Given the same state of integrity, it will surely serve us well. Okay, so I like this. Just like nature must be tamed. And that too fits to the album cover and that hurricane and wild nature that is being displayed. Science must be tamed. This is an interesting statement to me, because science is usually something we would consider something that needs to be studied, explored, understood. But science too is a practice, just like medicine and everything else. It's an ongoing learning experience. One year we discover this, the next year we have to either falsify that theory or we prove it correctly, and we uphold that axiom for a little while longer until we have new findings. It's an ever ongoing process, just like we are ever growing and ever evolving beings. And so here to speak of science, not in the sense of something that must be learned, but something that must be tamed, is very interesting to me. With a view towards its preservation, given the same state of integrity, it will surely serve us well. And now here we're contrasting something that many people deem to be logic, which is science, is now being contrasted to integrity. And integrity is a powerful, very powerful, beautiful word in my opinion. But integrity is not something that is always logical, because people will define integrity, morality, ethics in various ways. What one person considers to be a matter of integrity, another person will not. And people will disagree on what is moral, what is the difference between morals and ethics, what is true integrity, what not. But here we're seeing this picture being painted in my mind of something that is beautiful, powerful, and helpful, that needs to be preserved with integrity. It will surely serve us well. When we treat things with integrity, when we honor them, when we treasure them, when we care for them, it serves us well. The most endangered species, the honest man. Ooh, now a beautiful link to the idea of integrity. Instead of, we're speaking of natural sciences, we're speaking of the sea, we're speaking of the tide and weather, we're speaking of science and nature, and now speaking of endangered species, but pointing out that even more than the animals that are going extinct and the things we would typically talk about being endangered, it is the honest man, a person that is willing to be truthful and have integrity, will still survive annihilation, forming a world, a state of integrity, sensitive, open, and strong. Wave after wave will flow with the tide and bury the world as it does. Tide after tide will flow and recede, leaving life to go on as it was. Man. And here too, this language to me paints this picture of a cycle, those wheels within wheels, living a life to go on as it was, almost as if to imply it just keeps going. This song that must have been birthed from sitting at the ocean and just taking in that beauty, the waves that go in and they recede, that cycle. That's something that fascinates me about the ocean. It does not stop, wave after wave. And it's something that buries the world as it does. It buries the pools of water that are left behind. It buries the sand. It buries the footprint we left. And that is so powerful. You know, there was something about this composition that also made me think of Nightwish, and that made me think of their song Perfume of the Timeless. A beautiful, poetic, artful, skillful song that deals with science, that deals with not only scientific topics from a very highly intelligent standpoint, so much intelligence here, but also from a poetic standpoint. And I love that contrast because I think in life we are tempted to put labels on things. We want to categorize. It gives us a sense of control that makes us feel safe. And so we try to give things names. Oh, this is philosophy. Oh, this is psychology. Oh, here is science. A lot of times we want to create a hierarchy. Well, the science is the ultimate. And if you're a scientist, you know it all. And then the poet might come along and say poetry is the ultimate form of whatever. And then the religious person might come along and say faith is the highest form of so and so, right? People constantly fight and argue. This is the way. No, this is the way. And this song so humbly but beautifully addresses a very important, very beautiful intellectual topic, aka natural science, but does it in such a poetic way that is very humbling to me and shows me it is all connected, especially when they brought in that quantum leap. And it made me think of quantum physics, and I don't know nearly enough about it. So if you are educated in that regard, comment away. What are your thoughts on it? But Ren actually posted something about quantum physics a while back. He was reading, and I have not verified how accurate that is, or I still want to understand. I'm still not quite educated enough on that topic. But the idea was basically that on a quantum physics level, these atoms and these molecules move differently when they're observed versus when they're not observed. And at first I was confused because I thought, well, as soon as we know that something is not being observed, aren't we in a way observing it? Right? If I can say that this object, the molecules and atoms interacted and moved in a certain way because I was observing through a microscope, somehow interacting with it, fine, that can be measured. Science, beautiful. But if I now say, well, they move differently when I didn't observe them, somehow I must have observed that I wasn't observing them. So does that not kind of taint the objectivity and the hands-off experiment? And I was a little confused by the theory, but I think the principle, and again, I need to study it more, was simply saying that on a quantum physics level, things move and present themselves differently when observed and studied and messed with than when they are not interrupted. And I wonder how true that is, but I'm amazed by the fact that there's so much happening around us that is more connected than we realize on a physical, tangible level, but also on a subconscious, psychological level, on a quantum physics level. There are things moving, and that doesn't mean it has to be ghosts in the sky, ooh, superstitious and conspiracy, and it's all kumbaya. Everything can be taken in extremes. Some people might make it just about pleasure, others make it just about abstinence. Some people make it all about the physical, others make it all about the spiritual. Maybe it's somewhere in the middle. But this song beautifully creates this dance, in my opinion, between science and between poetry, between the waves that come in and go out, between the fact that we are a small microcosmic planet, and yet we are and a complete society all on our own. We are little pools and yet connected to the sea. We are going through the motions and yet we are living life, and the life goes on as it was. It's so humbling, and at the same time it leaves me with so many questions. But it was so fittingly arranged. That musical composition was so fittingly arranged to what this song is about. Absolutely mind-blowing. Maybe this is my favorite. I don't know. I've got to show you guys my t-shirt. What do you think about this song? It's absolutely mesmerizing. Thank you for this suggestion. Thank you very much. You guys tell me in the comments what this song means to you, what you pull out of it. It is absolutely beautiful to me. I hope you enjoyed this review. Check out more of my Rush reactions. Subscribe, click the bell so you don't miss a thing, and I'll see you on the next ride. Ayo!